This is week 2 of the spring trimester. I'm Jennifer Marie, and this is my Atelier diary. Don't forget there was a workshop happening at my Atelier in Chicago. Magda, my instructor, is going to be teaching it, and I'll be assisting. And the workshop is split into 2, and you can either take one or you can take both. So there's a 2-week drawing workshop and then a 4-week painting workshop. The dates are July 10th through August 18th. I have the cost and all the other information down below in the description box, and my followers get 15% off. So if you have any questions or you want to sign up, you can email me, and my email address is in the description box down below. All right, for the figure session, last week I was working on the transfer drawing, and this week planning on painting it. So come Monday, I didn't know if I wanted to work on the transfer drawing a little bit longer or just jump into transferring it into paint. So I talked to Magda, and she said, why don't I just put my drawing up on my easel and I can look at it for half a session, so maybe 15 minutes. But she was looking at it and saying that it seemed like I could correct some things, but it'd probably be better to get it transferred pretty soon, because she said it looked like the things that I could do to make it stronger, the gesture and proportion stronger, would probably be easier working with paint, because then I'm working with bigger masses and it can be easier to move around things that way. So I did that. I put the transfer drawing up, I changed just a few things, and then I went ahead and transferred it. So to transfer the drawing, what I did was I took tracing paper over my drawing, traced it out, and then I ended up putting charcoal on the back of the tracing paper, putting the tracing paper up on my blank canvas, and then traced over those lines that I made, so that was pushing the charcoal onto the canvas. So when I took the tracing paper off, I had the exact same drawing on my canvas then. And always a transfer drawing is never perfect, and little things kind of get messed up, but it's a pretty good representation on what I had worked on, so then I was able to get going on the painting quickly with having the outlines of the drawing already on there. This time, starting with the paint, I use just plain turpentine, and I don't know, I guess I'm still kind of figuring out what I like to do to start a painting, and so I used a little bit more turpentine than I normally do. And I don't know, I mean, the transfer drawing and the first wash, it turned out fine, but I think I don't like the method that I did this time as much as things that I've done in the past. So I used more turpentine, which made the paint kind of inky and a little too slidey for my taste. So it was nice because I could get clean, harder lines doing that. But I think what I like to do when I start that wash and getting the first bit of paint on the canvas, I think I like to maybe almost dry brush things on more, because instead of having that inky appearance to it, I can get, with dry brushing, I can get kind of more smoky edges to things, so it kind of seems like I'm not locked in to anything, so because things that don't have a clear, defined line. And I wasn't able, using more turpentine that I did this time, I wasn't able to get that smoky effect, because everything did have a really clear, defined line to it, which is fine. I just think I like doing what I did before better. Tuesday, I mixed up a shadow color and the background color, and then I also mixed up the color of the Imprimatura, which is this yellowish color, so if I needed to make corrections on the light shape, I could do that. So what I was trying to do was establish the relationship between the shadow and the background. And Matt made a good point this day, saying that it probably would have been better if I would have made the Imprimatura a more gray color and not such a warm yellowy color, because he said it just takes the painting a little bit, it's not as efficient because it takes it farther away from nature, because he was saying, now that I can see that I have the shadow and the background together, there's just this yellow white area for the light shape for the figure, and he said that's not what the model looks like, and it probably would have been better if I would have did a more bluish gray, like a colder gray, because then that would have at least had the cool tones in the skin, and that would have been more accurate to nature, because there really isn't yellow kind of anywhere in it. So that's good to know, and I will try and do that next time. Wednesday, I ended up pretty much doing the same thing where I was just working with the shadow mixture, the background mixture, and then the imprimatura color that I mixed up. And one thing, the arm that's raised on the left, for one day it got lowered, and that's how I captured it. And then they corrected it and the pole got moved up to where it originally was. So I've been raising the arm up a lot, and then also I had it way too long and brought out from the head way too much. So I've been slowly bringing it in, and that's why the arm looks really weird right now. It looks like this weird bluish color, and that's because I already had the background on and it hadn't dried yet. And so I was trying to take the light shape of the imprimatura and bring it over, which is this white yellowy color. So the white yellowy color and the really dark gray background mixed together to make that blue color. So I know that looks weird. I'm just still working on getting it to be in the right place, so the right gesture and proportion. Thursday was a good day where I learned a lot. So I've pretty much before this been working on the shadow and background relationship, and since I've gotten that, the thing that's behind now is the light shape. So I knew I wanted to work into the lights, and I knew I wanted to work in the biggest areas of color in the lights as possible. And so my thought process was, I'm going to start in the darks and work into the lights. So the dark area of the lights are the legs. So I started there, and the thing is though, I got stuck in those areas, and I guess I wasn't really thinking about like really huge big areas of color going across the body. I think I got in there and I started to resolve things, and I started thinking about the little planes of the legs to get the legs to start turning, instead of thinking of the really big planes of the whole body. So Matt came around towards the end of the day and he just said pretty much what I did, that I shouldn't be caught up in trying to turn the forms yet because I don't know what I'm doing yet, because the other areas of the light aren't covered yet and don't look naturalistic. So he said to get everything covered in paint as fast as possible, because I only had about, I think, a session left, so maybe 20-25 minutes left that I could do that. So he said just think about the really big areas. He said the colors that I'd mixed up in the legs could apply to the arm that's on the right that's resting, and just to try and get as few mixtures up there that will represent how the light and colors are hitting the really big areas on the body. So I mixed up things really fast and I just threw them on and that really helped because I could see things a whole lot better. I could see that what I was doing in the legs was really not efficient to getting this whole figure painting finished. So it's hard to do for me still, is to think in these really simple planes of color, value, and light. With painting, I felt like I could do that easier with drawing, but that's probably just because you're not working with color at all. It's just you're getting big areas of value. So I feel like I do still need to really be consciously thinking of doing that. Think of the big color planes that are flowing across the whole body. Friday was also a good day for learning stuff. So Magda came around and she was like, yes, finally you got the whole painting covered in paint. She was saying to now really push the effect of light on the body in the painting. So she said if I look at the pose, you can see the really strong light is on the chest. It goes up the arm that's to the left, that's holding the pole up above his head, down his stomach, and a little bit on his hip bones on either side. So she was saying that that's the really strong light. And the light shape is bigger than that because you can see light that's on his neck, on his face, his legs, the arm that's bent, that's resting to the right, that's resting on the stand, and then his hands. And she was saying those are all light shapes too, but they're definitely a light that's a step down from the really strong light source. So she was saying it would be really beneficial this day to really get that represented. So what I did then was I took the value up in the areas for the really bright light and made sure that they looked as connected as possible. So, you know, starting at the wrist, going down to the chest, the stomach, and the tops of the hip bones. Oh, and she also said my painting was looking warm and like I was missing the cool tones in the painting. So where I was knocking the light down, I mixed up this purpley color, but that was really helpful doing that because I feel like if she wouldn't have said that, I would have started working in smaller planes already. And again, it's just, I can really see that they're pushing me to work in those big value planes and color planes, and it is beneficial because I can get it down really fast and see things quickly. So to stay, it's tricky, and I just need to be more conscious to stay in this really big block in. My cats project went really well this week. I'm having a lot of fun with it because now I'm going back and I feel like I am resolving things as best as I can now. And then with resolving, Matt was showing me ways that I can be applying paint, and both Matt and Magda are really saying the thing that's going to make this cast look like nature and really stand out and look really good is to show the variation of edges and the variation of how the paint is applied to show different textures. So for example, what Matt was showing me you have the angel heads, and then right behind the angel heads, I'm calling it the background. I don't know. I mean, it's still part of the cast, but like the flat part where the heads are against. He was showing me, well, I was struggling to get the look of the texture of that because there is a lot of variation in color and value, and things would either get too jumpy or it just didn't look like the actual cast because I would either get things looking too jumpy or I would blur things out too much. So he was showing me taking a palette knife and making lines go across it onto the canvas and how the canvas would pick up these lines of paint. And I would be doing that with darker values, and then I would go back in and do that with lighter values. I would modify some edges with my brush. I would use the brush in different ways as well, either taking the brush to kind of make lines or making these like pixelated look, I guess, with a flat brush, and just kind of doing all these different tricks to just try and get the thing to actually look like it is, because the cast is really unified back there, but there is a ton of variation in it as well. So just trying to do different tricks to get the paint to look like that without being too blurred out and without being too jumpy, but to find a balance between that. And I'm finding doing that is really by showing the variation of how you're putting paint down. Also the same thing with the baby heads. So the focal baby head, I was having problems getting all the things to look like they were turning, and again I was having the problem with things either looked too blurry or things looked too sharp. And so Magda came by for that critique, and she was saying that some things are really blurry, some things are really sharp, and she was like, you're just missing the variation in it. And one thing that she helped to judge the variation in it is she said to look at the highlights on that head and judge everything off the highlights, because I know that the highlights are going to be the most diffused, because if you think of a highlight like a light bulb, when you turn a light bulb on and you look at it, you can't see the lines that make up the light bulb because it's so bright, and that's what makes it look like it's glowing. So I would look at the highlights, and out of the corner of my eye I would kind of judge everything off of that. And so doing that helped a whole bunch, and it was really fun too because this cast is really busted up and broken, and someone painted the cast, so the paint's peeling off the cast. So again, I was trying to get these effects of the busted up cast where it looks like pieces are chipped off. So I took a really small palette knife that I had, and this time I would dip the palette knife into a paint mixture, and I would start pressing paint on, and But like for example, also in the face of the main baby, there's a little chip taken from the cheek. So I was really careful to mix up paint that showed a lighter value where the paint's chipped off, but it also has dirt in it too. So I wanted to make sure that the values um, were pretty close together, that you could still see contrast, so you could see what's going on there, but that the values were still close enough that it wasn't going to be jumped off or like too jumpy or distracting. But so what I did was I took my really tiny palette knife and I put a lighter value on the cheek where the paint had chipped off, but then to show the dirt that's pushed in the cracks and the chipped off point, I stirred into it this little darker value, and I think it looks really cool. And it's been a really fun week working on this cast because I'm trying to see how many different ways that I can use paint to not just to see how many different ways I can use paint, but to see how close I can use or to get the effect of what I'm actually looking at, because there's a lot of variation of things that are going on in this cast, and to try and represent that in paint, it's been really fun to experiment with. Oh, also, something that I've also been doing is painting with my finger a lot. So I was painting, especially in the hair of the focal baby, the main focal baby, and I would put down values, and my brush wasn't doing the trick to get it to have this diffused look to it as it does in some places. So I would put the paint down and get it as close as I can, but then I would take my finger and carefully modify edges, and it just got it looking how I wanted it to. So I'm just trying to think of any way that I can get the paint to do what I want it to, even if that's not using palette knives or brushes, but my finger. And then on Friday, Magda was talking to me about my cast, and she was saying that I think you should just focus on the focal point of the painting and try it and finish it and get it as resolved as I want it to be. So that's the main focal baby head. And so I didn't quite get there on Friday, so I'm going to work a little bit more on it next week. But she said once I get that done, then I can start finishing the painting and I can bring everything to a resolve, or as much of a resolve as I want it to, based off the focal point. Which is exciting because this cast has been taking a while. I'm having so much fun with it now because this just feels like a really fun stage to be in, but I'm also pretty excited that I feel like I'm going to get this painting finished up, like I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Alright, I'm going to leave you with this drawing that I did on Tuesday. The model's name is Megan, and I really liked how this one turned out.